on the Gold Morning Drive.
Coming to a new age fairy tale. Why did Cinderella get kicked out of the soccer team?
Because she kept running from the ball. Definitely coming into a new age, and I don't think it's going to be a fairy tale either. That's for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we promised you a very special guest in the studios joining us today on the Gold Morning Drive. So it is our distinct pleasure to welcome a very renowned economist, member of parliament, and the chief organizer as well for the Colombo district for the SJB, Dr. Harsha de Silva. Good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me to the studio.
It's good having you in the studio. And Nathan?
Yep. So we've got a ton of questions for you, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to hear from you as well. First of all, Dr. De Silva, is there a good chance of you becoming the Minister of Finance under the future government? And if that happens, what plans and concepts would you bring to the table to develop the economy personally as well as a government?
Oh my gosh. First we have to win this election, and I hope everyone listening will do what needs to be done. Well, I mean, we have a team of people working with us, myself, Iran, Kabir. So we work together. It really doesn't matter who becomes, but I think Sajid has mentioned both in and outside Parliament that he would like me to take that responsibility, and I'm certainly ready to take the responsibility. There are multiple things that we need to do. We need to ensure that stability remains in the short term. Everyone listening probably wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, because this government is going to be gone. That's for certain. Depending on who comes, what happens to interest rates, what happens to the currency, what happens to prices, where will we go? Because there's a lot of talk about the IMF. How do we manage the relationship? As most people listening to you would probably know, that we are yet to sign the debt restructuring agreement. There's $2.5 billion of ISBs that need to be resolved. Then there's another 11 billion on bilateral loans that need to be resolved. So it's a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And we are facing a court case in the New York District Court for $250 million by Hamilton Reserve Bank for interventions have been made, and a recent intervention by big funds. I think folks like Amundi, T. Rowe Price, perhaps may even be BlackRock, I'm not sure, went to court and wanted Sri Lanka to sort of agree on the debt restructure by the 15th. That's just a few days away. So there's a lot of things that need to be resolved before we do anything, right? Because we are in the middle of a restructuring process, and that cannot sort of fall through. We can't lose the ball here, right?
For sure.
Drop the ball. So first item of business is to ensure the people that we can get this done, right? That we will ensure that there is stability. The rupee is not going to go crazy. Interest rates are not going to go crazy. Relax. We have got it under control. So I think that is a message that I want to give to people listening, because like I said, this government is gone, and if we come, we can manage it. We know how to do it, right? But it's not the case if it goes in any other way. That's what I wanted to emphasize.
In any other direction. Right.
So, I mean, we can talk about medium to long term, but, we have a big plan. I mean, I brought the blueprint with me.
Now, talking about, we'll come to that point as well. You're the only party that has the short, medium, and the long-term strategy.
Yeah.
We'll come to that part later on.
In the meantime, though, we're going to get back into the hits. Aretha Franklin teaming up with George Michael. A very special guest today, of course, Member of Parliament, Dr. Harsha de Silva. Once again, thank you for being with us here today. And Jimmy, I believe you had something you wanted to check with the doctor.
Yes, Dr. De Silva, now being mentioned that there will be reliefs given under the SJB government, including for the public sector salaries. But given the prevailing economic conditions, would this just be a mere promise, or can this be realized?
Well, it is not just for public sector. I mean, one of the biggest complaints we had was from the working middle class. You know, folks told us, look at our marginal tax rate. I'll give you the real story. The government wanted to raise 68 billion rupees in pay tax, okay? And then we did the calculation. I was also the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance and said, look, the way you are going, you're going to make 145 billion rupees. So therefore, you don't actually need to tax this much. You can bring down the rate.
Okay.
They said they didn't reply my letter. I tabled it in Parliament also. And then they ended up making 145 billion rupees. And then for this year, they've increased it to 200 billion rupees, right? Now, while they did the same thing on the pay, the personal income tax, that means the ones that we voluntarily pay, they were expecting something like 110 billion and ended up around 40 billion. Right. And for this year, they increased it to something like 80 billion and they'll probably get less than 40 billion. So the issue is compliance, right? If we comply, we don't have to pay so much tax. Now, two things. One is, as citizens, we also have responsibilities, right? We get free education, health, etc. And so therefore, we have to be responsible, right? Of course, there is a view that the money is wasted and all of that. Yes, there is money wasted. And yes, we need to fix that. We need to plug those holes. We got to fight corruption. All of that is true. Now, on the revenue side, countries like ours, Nathan, about 28%, so 26% of GDP comes in as revenue to the state. That is and of revenue to the state in any country, 90% is tax.
Sure.
Unless you have, like Temasek and all, you have holding companies that own parts of, shares of previously state-owned enterprises that make profits. We get to that later. So therefore, taxes are important. Then direct taxes are better than indirect taxes. Indirect taxes are VAT and what you pay, special commodity levy, or pay TDL, we go to restaurant, pay, all that. Direct taxes are directly related to your income. You make more, you pay more.
Exactly.
Now what happened is they brought this new tax structure. Originally it was to 24% max rate. Then Gotabaya Rajapaksa brought it down to 18%. And Ranil Wickremesinghe took it up to 36%. Now, if you make more than 308,000 rupees a month, what happens is you are now in the highest marginal tax bracket. But think about it. Most people driving, listening would be corporate executives, middle managers, university lecturers, doctors, accountants. So our thinking was, can we give relief to the middle section? Right? The rich can certainly pay 30 to 36% at the higher margin, right?
But what you're looking is in that bulk area.
That's right. So, and then there was this big debate within us, Sajid, all of us, because can we remove everyone up to 200,000 rupees? Right? So don't have to pay any tax up to 200,000 rupees. So these were the things that I had to consider in coming up with which I did, which is in our blueprint. So up to 100,000, no tax, right? As it is right now. But the next slabs are from 41,667. Next one, I said, let's keep it at 1%. The people say, why do you want to keep it at 1%? I said, just let go of it. No, I said, at 1%, people feel responsible. People feel they're contributing. They're contributing. They want to contribute, right? And, I mean, look, if you make 140,000 rupees, according to our plan, you make 400 rupees tax you pay. What's that?
Absolutely.
You go downstairs here, you can't, what can you buy for $400, right? So you don't mind contributing $400 at 140,000. So 200,000 like that. So up to just under 500,000, you're not going to move beyond the highest marginal tax rate of 24%.
Yeah.
Right.
So we believe that 92% of working people, we can, not burden them beyond 24%.
Sure.
So the rest, I don't want to mention the actual amounts, but then it go to 30% and remain at 36% for the people who make millions. So what
It's only fair, isn't it?
yeah, so what we've done is we are addressing the people who are basically listening to this podcast, rather the live radio show.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much for elaborating on that, Dr. De Silva. We'll get right back to you, of course, right after this. This is Stevie Wonder.
Cruising down memory lane, all across
For those of you who are just joining us, we're joined in the studio today by Member of Parliament and the Chief Organizer for the Colombo District of the SJB, of course, Dr. Harsha de Silva. Dr. de Silva, now we touched on certain tax reliefs and how you might, extend it to the people. But what about the people who don't pay taxes?
Yeah, so that's really the issue. There are two types of people who basically evade and others who underreport.
Yeah.
So when you say taxes, there are personal income taxes.
Yes.
Then there is tax that you collect as agent for the government, VAT, etc. And you need to pass what you collect on to the state. Remember,
That's right.
there's this big VAT scam and all that. And now, some places, people just don't charge people the taxes they ought to charge.
Yeah.
Right? Go to certain,
Traders.
places, traders. So,
In the city, this is you're talking about. right?
yeah. See, now, many countries have dealt with this.
Yeah.
And they found a way out. And we can do the same thing. Let's take India, for example.
Yeah.
What happened was India's gone from cash to QR codes. Digital. So even if you go buy a bulat Twitter, from your typical pan wala,
Yeah.
you have to pay with your QR code. You try to pay the guy with cash. He says, can you pay with your phone?
Sure.
So when you do that, what happens is everything comes into a
Database.
a structure. So what we are planning to do is to introduce a digital public infrastructure. Our entire program in the future will run on this DPI, which means every person will have a unique ID.
Right.
And India did it with Aadhaar. India's got like 1+ billion people on Aadhaar. And every transaction can be, if you wish to, be recorded on this platform. So when you're born, with your birth certificate, you'll get a
DNA with that way.
And when you die, you can erase it, saying this guy is no more.
Obsolete.
Yeah. And during that period, technically, you will then, perform various transactions. You open a bank account immediately, the authorities will know you now have a bank account.
Yeah.
You open a business, you do that. You file your returns, you know that. You pay your taxes, you know that. You buy a house, you know that. You sell a car, you know that.
Yeah.
Right? So this is connected.
There's no human element to bend the system.
No. So that rent-seeking behavior of people in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, you are supposed to pay 200,000, but if you pay me 50,000, I'll make your payment 50,000. So government loses 100,000.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
that guy
Gets
gets
away.
away with 50,000 and the rent seeker gets 50,000. That's what happens. So my thing is, if you make taxes reasonably low, but not like what Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa did that crashed the country,
Yeah.
and then you have a mechanism by which you move from cash to digital.
Yeah.
A lot of these issues can really be resolved in terms of compliance. But there are other measures that we have sort of talked about in our blueprint. But I think this is going to be the game changer.
So, but there's a big difference between no taxes and tax cuts.
Yeah.
Now, President Wickremesinghe insists that there's no room for tax cuts either, saying it will lead to the collapse of the country and the rupee depreciation. And there's an example to that effect which happened, like you said, under the former president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, with the reduction of VAT. So how do you intend to provide tax relief to the people whilst also protecting the economy?
No, so I mean, by training, I am an economist.
Yeah.
And I have been the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance for X number of years. Actually, funny thing is, constitutionally and through the standing orders of Parliament, a member of the opposition must chair the Committee on Public Finance. Why is that? That is for transparency and to ensure that, just because the government says something is possible, you need to look at the feasibility of this. So But when Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa came, their government actually suspended standing orders. You can suspend standing orders by a vote in parliament and then do things outside the standing order, which is what they did.
Right.
They went to that extent, and they appointed one of their people as chairman of the Committee on Public Finance. And then there were no questions asked. They went ahead, right? And if me as a member of the committee tried to raise a question, that was not entertained. Only after we became bankrupt, they told me, Harsha, can you please take over the chair of the Committee on Public Finance? So since then I have been, right? So therefore, I also know how this system operates. You know, there is, I summoned the Secretary of the Treasury, I summoned the Governor Central Bank, I summoned the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue, I summoned all these people. And there is a good understanding with me as to how this operates. So therefore, I'm not just shooting in the dark.
Oh, for sure.
Right? For sure, right? So I have the numbers. I don't have every number in every great detail, but I have enough numbers to back up my claim. So if I say I can do this by bringing to 24%, I am saying it because I can. We can. You know, the system allows us to do this. So beyond digitalization, there are going to be various adjustments in taxes. For instance, withholding tax changes that won't affect decent taxpayers, but evaders and underreporters, at least they will pay 10% as opposed to 5%, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So the compliance increases. So there are multiple ways that we have looked into this, and just because Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe says it is not possible doesn't mean that it is not possible for us.
If there's a will, there's a way.
There is a way.
Right, moving from taxes to this particular question, Dr. De Silva. Now, the Treasury will have to bear the brunt when fertilizer subsidies are given to farmers. How will you face this situation?
Actually, it's funny because what Sajid said is we'll give 5,000, and we've done the calculation, and it is really no different from what is happening now.
Okay.
In fact, it will be the Treasury will not have any significant changes in the cost because there is a current subsidy given. I don't have the exact numbers with me, but for 2 hectares a certain amount is given.
Right.
And what we are doing instead is quantifying it and giving it in another way. But after we said 5,000. I think RW said 4,000 or something like that 2 days ago.
So it's like a bidding war now.
So we have been very responsible, I must tell you, because we worked within the for instance, even the salaries, right? Right. People will ask, how are you going to do it? We haven't gone outside the report presented by the Independent Committee on Salaries.
Right.
So, right? I mean, we didn't say every 6 months we are going to increase salaries.
Sure.
We didn't say anything irresponsible like that. What we said is a committee was appointed, and that committee came up with a particular report that was approved by the cabinet and the treasury, and we said that's what we are going to do. But we said, okay, the starting will be 2,500 rupees more. That's a minor matter that we have found the money to do.
Right.
But we have been responsible. So whether it is taxes, whether it is salaries,
right,
whether it is cost of living allowance, whether it is fertilizer subsidies, whether it is the Jana Savya program, whether it is currently what the low income folk get on Aswasuma, I am telling you, we have done the numbers and we have been responsible. We have only said things we can do.
Wonderful. That's wonderful to hear.
It's not a fairy tale, it's a reality.
It is a reality. I mean, if there's time, I'll give you just one example.
Go ahead,
right?
please.
Sure,
Go ahead.
please.
You know, there was a proposal that we give every woman over the age of 40 years a free health check.
Right.
Now I said, let's look at it. What is the cost? Okay, even if you go to the public hospital, there is a cost, right, associated with it. Getting it free, but somebody has to pay.
Sure.
So I called several friends who run hospitals and I asked them, give me what is it cost? So basically, they said, well, you have to do a mammogram, you have to do a pap smear, you have to do all these other things besides, right? Because you're talking about women over 40.
Yeah.
It costs $25,000, right? Cost. 4 million women over the age of 40. That's 100 billion rupees. I said, we cannot do it right away.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can contribute towards it once in 3 years.
Sure.
What did the JVP guys do? They said not only women, all women and all men also. so that 200 billion, right? Let's say, okay, we don't have to do mammograms and pap smears. Right? Let's say ours is 20,000 as opposed to 25,000, or let's say ours is 15,000, right? So that's close to 200 billion. 200 billion. Right, so but people should ask these people,
How are they going to get
how
this?
are they going to do it, and they're also going to cut taxes. So I'm talking to people who are who are thinking. I'm talking to people who are also wondering how should we decide in the next 8 days. This is one example, and I give you many.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. It's been very insightful. But we're going to take a little break, head back into the hits, and this is something we all need a little bit of. George Michael and Faith.
All over the
many things about taxation, people who pay tax, people who don't pay tax. Let's look into something a little different for the moment. Now, in 2016, under the government, or the, let's say, good governance, the pensioners of the new recruits of the state sector were halted. And how will you go about changing or not changing this policy?
Well, I mean, it is not the normal practice of giving pension only to people who work in government. We have very clearly stated in our blueprint about what we think on pensions, because there is a big aging population, right? What is called old age dependency ratio, right? That is the share of working people who are supported by, or pair of old people supported by working people. That ratio is increasing. And so therefore we got to do something about it. And we are talking about a universal pension that, not just for the public sector, but for everyone. So the difference is you have to contribute. Now, without any contribution, we pay out pensions to the people in the public sector. For the private sector, we contribute EPF, ETF, and then you get a lump sum. So we are looking at multiple models, and independent of where you work, you should be able to draw either a lump sum or a monthly payment or a combination of both. But one thing is, there has to be a contribution. So I actually once did a study a few years ago, and I was startled to find that we paid out perhaps one of the highest ratios at what the pension is in relation to what your last salary is, and contribute the least. Zero in the case of public sector, right? So the and this is all funded by what? Taxpayer money.
Exactly.
Right? Taxpayer money and loans. So therefore it has to be sustainable. And here again, we are not promising things we can't do.
Can't deliver. Right. Well, Doctor, traditional economic policies are now kind of outdated if you think about it now. In Sri Lanka is position on the competitive with countries in the global economic changes. And how does, if your government come into power, how will you move forward in this concept of a blueprint?
No, it's like this. I give you some state some facts.
Okay.
Sri Lanka. You see, in our blueprint, I have just one picture chart, right? I'll show it to you. Now, this chart, what it means is, it shows the contribution of developing countries' share in world exports.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you go back to the 70s, about 16% of world exports came from developing countries like ours. The rest came from developed countries, America, China, Canada, Japan. Now, as at last year, that went to 52+%. That means the developing countries' share of world exports are increasing in a huge way.
Right.
Sri Lanka's share in developing country exports, that is our share in that number, went from 0.03% in 1977 to 0.3% in around 2000. That is after Mr. Premadasa's apparel factories came on stream.
Right.
Then since then, right, after 2004 particularly, it continued to drop. Today we are at 0.1%.
Whoa, that's a big drop.
No, 0.1% is our share of developing countries' exports, which is 52%.
Whoa.
So you see, not only that we are falling in the developing countries share. That means China.
It's a different sector that we're falling off from.
I mean, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, all these countries. So we are doing something wrong. right? This has to be turned around and not grow in 0.0 numbers, but in percentage points.
So if it's going somewhere wrong, would you have the answer to that?
Of course. So that is why I always keep saying, Jimmy, that it has to be, our markets have to be larger. Our markets got to be beyond the shores of this country. That is why I say we got to build bridges to the world.
Sure.
Right? We have to create a dynamic economy here. Think about jobs, right? We need to create jobs, but where will jobs come from? Where is growth going to come from? Public sector jobs are not going to be any longer feasible. Where will private sector jobs come from? Can you create the kind of jobs we want with the decent salaries to serve these 22 million people? We are a small country, so unless we look outside, unless we build bridges to the world, unless we start producing things that we don't produce now,
True.
right? And unless we really try to export to the expanding global marketplace, we ain't going to make it.
And we've got to think out of the box as well when it comes to job creation, not the traditional way of thinking, right?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, if you think about an 18-year-old kid now, or take a 15-year-old kid, and think in the next 10 years, where is she going to be working at? What kind of jobs will she have? Accountants, forget it. General office workers,
There's 9 to 5.
forget it.
Yeah.
Right?
This is the digital era. It's the digital
bus
era.
drivers, cab drivers, forget it.
True.
Right? I mean, you're going to have different skills.
Sure.
The world is going in a different direction.
And talking about different direction also, Doctor, if you look at the manpower in the country today, gone are the days that you can find people in the fields farming. Today they are doing something else, and we are lacking in farming, even in professionals like plumbers, electricians, and so on and so forth as well. So how do we find this vacuum? Where do we get this from?
Do you know I'm a farmer?
Wow. Okay, let me ask you, what do you farm?
No, we have our own sort of, what my wife inherited from her dad.
Right.
Facts and that we've been, sort of coconut, rubber,
Oh,
cinnamon
nice.
and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying. But we've gone into modern farming,
Smart farming.
Yeah, my son also is very much involved in this in terms of we've sort of looked at agriculture modernization. So greenhouses,
Yeah.
hydroponics.
Drones, the seeding and so forth.
No. So this is all inside.
Inside, okay.
So high value
Produce.
I mean, so what I'm saying is there is future for farming, but it cannot be the traditional farming.
No.
I mean, if you really start going and, getting involved in agriculture, you realize how difficult it is.
Yeah.
About water, you depend
Weather.
on rain, weather has changed
So much,
significantly.
yeah.
Right? And then, a lot of people don't understand pests, monkeys, peacocks, they destroy your fields.
Natural.
Right. So farmers need protection in using technology. I mean, even simple things like drip irrigation. Our farmers don't use, but farming can be profitable. Farming has to be modernized, and also farmers need to know what to produce, how much to produce, when to produce. I've been studying the Dambulla market for the last 20 plus years. The volatility in the farmer community, because they produce the same thing, and you come to the market, there's so much
At the wastage, isn't
overproduced,
it?
and then it falls, right? And then wastage, I'll come to that. So we are creating something called the Govi Jnana Seva. So the Govi Jnana Seva will run on our DPI platform.
Right.
And farmers and buyers will be connected. They will be able to go into forward sales agreements, right? Because currently they have to depend on the trader to give them working capital loan.
Yeah.
But with this, you have a forward sales agreement which you can take to the bank and get working capital loan as collateral as this document. Then what happens to storage? Do you know, Nathan, that there is not one single climate control storage for the millions of farmers in this country?
Whoa.
Do you know that there is no storage for potatoes in Valley Mada? Do you know there is not a single storage for onions in Dambulla? Do you know that there is not a single storage for chilies in Jaffna?
My
Do you
goodness.
know that there is not a single storage for strawberries in Norelia? Now, I want to change that. You know, we
Estates for
started
good.
something called Prabhaswara. I'm glad you asked that question, because that gave me also an
insights.
opportunity to tell people, look, it's not only about city jobs and things like that. There is work in the field if you can do
True.
it. So this Prabhaswara is Sri Lanka's first ever 5,000 metric ton, 6 chambers, temperature and humidity controlled agricultural warehouse. So it's just about done. It's done on a grant from the government of India.
Right.
And
But you need more of that to from area to
no,
area.
not more. It was supposed to be open March of 2020, but Mr. Rajapaksa's government shelved it. And even though I've been in opposition, we've been going there fighting, shouting, pushing, talking to the government, talking to the High Commission. It's almost done. 98% of it is done. So hopefully if we win, that will be one of the first things that we will be able to bring to the table, sort of give the farmer community
Wow.
the first
relief, a
ever,
relief.
first ever. And the idea that I have, we wrote it in the blueprint, is to have a network of this. So one like that in Valley Mada for potatoes, something else for onions, something for chilies, something for something else. And then on the DPI, remember, it's all on a platform. We will know what is where, how much is in store, and we want the private enterprise to come in. Already we've spoken to all the logistics providers and the farmers to come together to control, manage these things. So a lot that we can do.
I mean, just to think that we are talking about agriculture and but not looking into the fundamentals of the infrastructure that's required in this modern day and age.
And the nitty-gritty of it.
That's a great insight, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a short break for your news highlights right about now. It's 9:42.
morning drive.
Can anyone give me a sentence with a direct object?
Yes, I can, miss. You are pretty.
What's a direct object?
A good report card.
A good report card is what we all want at the end of the day, that's for sure. And when you've got a guest this interesting, everything else goes on the back burner. That is for sure. Of course, we've got Dr. Harsha de Silva with us in the studios. Doctor, now, how does the economic vision blueprint differ from the economic policies of other candidates? What makes it more practical?
Well, this is a 62-page document that expands the economic section in Sajid's manifesto.
Right.
We believe economics is front and center right now because we are a bankrupt country, and we need to get out of bankruptcy and a path to sustainable growth. So we didn't want to just give empty promises.
Yeah.
So therefore, we broke this down to 10 sections, and we gave point by point by point what we are going to do. And we also gave time frames. So we are the only political party that has now presented a document with an action plan and a time frame. That itself, I think, shows that we are serious. Okay? And everything here is pretty much costed. So first thing is transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
You see, everybody is talking about corruption. We need to rid corruption. We all agree.
Yeah.
Now, to us, it is a necessary condition for growth, but it is not a sufficient condition for growth.
Yeah.
It is necessary but not sufficient.
Only one cog in the wheel.
That's right. So basically, with the DPI and strengthening the institutions and bringing in new laws. For instance, we are talking here about, your listeners would be interested to know, to remove the conflict of interest between the Attorney General's office and the judicial process when you're sort of prosecuting a politician or a high official, because till the date that you are being prosecuted, the Attorney General was your advisor. So there's a massive conflict of interest there.
Exactly.
So what we have said very clearly is we are going to change the structure and we are going to create an independent prosecutor's office.
Yeah.
So there is no political handling of these cases. So I mean, just one example. But then the first thing is, how do we stabilize the economy? I spoke, when you asked me the question, first thing we need to do, right?
Yeah.
Restructure the debt, look at interest rates, look at
taxations.
All of that, tax expense. Then the third section is we talk about growth, which is really what we need to, achieve if we want to take people out of poverty and take this country to where it belongs. We talked a bit about agriculture.
Yeah.
What is also in here in fair detail is what we plan for industry. How we want to integrate with the global manufacturing network.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at south of India, every investor is there. Elon Musk is also setting up. You look at places like Tamil Nadu, you look at Karnataka, Kerala, you look at Telangana, Andhra. According to Deloitte, Tamil Nadu itself is going to be $1 trillion economy in the next sort of 8 years.
All by themselves.
All by themselves, right? So there is a massive industrial enterprise that is getting created there. And it is quite possible that we can become part of that production network, right? And also, if you look at, this is my famous example, my iPhone is made in 43 countries and my country is not part of it, right? So when we talked about jobs in the earlier segment, we talked about accountants and office staff, jobs will be
based on
electronics. And since the demise of Mr. Premadasa, we haven't got any new industry here.
Yeah.
apparels.
And those zones which was he created by him.
Yeah, for 18 years, I think we've created, just a couple of zones, and we have only one private zone, which is the MAS textile in.
On the Kurunagala Road.
That's right.
Yeah.
Whereas, countries that are competing with us in the sort of 80%, 90%, 95% even are private zones. We have one private zone. But these private zones bring, say, the entire investment probably may come from, say, Samsung or so Apple or Tesla.
Yeah.
So you have to create those opportunities. And in order to do that, we have to open our minds. We are stuck ideologically, thinking that, protecting our domestic industry.
We are the frog in the well here.
Frog in the well, right? So, let's take some companies, big apparel firms. I don't want to name names, but we all know. They are domestic companies.
Yeah.
They are local entrepreneurs.
Yes.
But they're global brands, right? So, what we want to create are global giants, but positioned
Sri Lanka.
here.
Yeah.
A Sri Lanka global brand.
That's what, so may not even be brands, to be honest with you.
Or
Because
even just producers.
yeah, so we have to become part, we have to join the club. If you don't join the club, you don't get the same services of them, what the other members get.
Sure.
Right? But then you can't complain staying outside.
Yeah.
We don't get the benefits of membership because we are not a member.
Yeah.
We are not a member of any trade bloc.
And now we have to play catch up as well, because the other emerging countries like Vietnam and Cambodia, those countries which was not on the horizons before, and now they are big dominants in the world.
That's right. Look at those countries. They went from, basic, simple production, apparels and stuff. They went to toys, they went to radios, they went to TVs, they went to computers, they went to phones.
Yep.
Now they're into high tech. What us? What happened?
Singapore is probably the best example.
Yeah, but you remember the chart that I was referring to earlier.
Yes.
Since 1994, these are facts. We have gone down.
Yeah.
We have isolated ourselves. As a matter of fact, we are one of the closest countries in the world. Would you believe me?
Yeah.
Right? We people say open economy ruined us, but we are one of the closest. It's the easiest way to measure this. Is anyone can Google it. Is you add up exports and imports and divide that by GDP,
Yep.
and you see that ratio has been coming down.
Drastically.
Yeah, in the last 20 years, right? Exports have fallen from about 30% of GDP to 15% of GDP. Yeah. So we are going in the wrong direction. So what we are saying in industry is we must become players in global production networks. Then in services, we talk a lot about logistics. We are the center of this ocean.
Definitely.
We are the center of the ocean.
The nerve center.
Right? And we are punching way below our weight class.
Yeah.
We have to punch way above our weight class. If you want to create a dynamic trade hub here, going back to Parakramabahu, the great days in the 12th century, he fought wars with Southeast Asian kings because he wanted to protect his trade, right? We traded elephants and
route,
things
yes.
like that. Right?
Yeah.
You know the stories from millennia.
Yeah.
So how do we leverage that? And in my view, to do that, we also have to look at our role in the Indian Ocean in terms of security. I think we have to become players in the naval arena. Right? We have to say, look, we are a country that matters, right? And we have the harbors, all of that. The big story about logistics. And in IT and other services, tourism is a low, easy to leverage.
Sure.
Then the last part is about equity, social justice. When Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa came, we had 3 million people in poverty. Do you know how many people are in poverty today, Jimmy?
Enlighten us, please.
Please tell us.
Okay, so when Gotabaya Rajapaksa came, 3 million people were in poverty. Today, 7 million.
Whoa.
People listening to this probably won't know this.
Amazing.
Poverty means this. a lot of our folks listening here might be going to the gym, walking, running, jogging in the morning because they want to lose calories. Poverty here is defined as unable to spend enough money to get 2,000. No.
3 meals.
No. Just to get 2,030 kilocalories a day.
Oh, my goodness.
2,030 calories. That's what, one meal. Pretty much one and a half meals.
Yeah, so 7 million. So we got to make sure that we address those issues. I mean, otherwise you can't have stability in this country.
A healthy nation.
Yeah, I mean, no social.
Exactly.
It's
It's a downer, isn't it, in every aspect?
Yeah, so here we talk about a new Janasavya type program where we just don't want to hand out cash, but to have a mechanism where for
Well, they'll
24
appreciate
months,
it.
Yeah, I mean, we won't give cash. I mean, we will give cash,
That's
but
an
they'll have
incentive.
that's right. They have to show something in return. Am I going to a vocational training institute and learning how to become
skill, yeah.
skill? Am I going to learn English? Am I going to, start a small business? Am I going to become an entrepreneur? Am I going to, join some company? I'll acquire the skill to do that. So it will be based on the contribution that the household makes, and it's centered around the woman in the household, the mother or the daughter or the wife.
Yeah.
Right. So this blueprint is different to every other plan because it gives in great detail and timelines and action points as to what we are going to do, and it comes with the backing of our entire economics team, including Kabir, including Iran and many others, as people who have delivered in the past. We didn't come to politics as 20-year-olds. We came to politics in our 40s after we became successful in whatever
Careers
we've had.
Yeah.
Right?
You didn't come into politics to make money.
No, I mean, I came into politics after I ensured that my family is stable.
Yeah.
Right? And I have my own enterprises,
Sure.
which
You're comfortable with.
I am comfortable. I haven't changed my lifestyle. You know that. The Friday night drink and to be able to enjoy all of that. I mean, just because I do politics doesn't mean that I have to give up on things that I do.
Shake a leg a bit here and there. And just let me touch on something I spoke earlier on, Nathan.
Yeah.
We did mention that your party has the only party which we see has the short, middle, and long-term plan.
Yeah.
If you can just touch on those 3 points.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So everything has a time frame, right? I mean, what are the interventions, and each intervention will have a time frame, right? So under each point that we spoke about, the 10 points, will be action plans and time frames. So
Right.
like you see here, right? All these different things that we refer to. Now, for instance, in rationalizing public expenditure, this is what I say: data-driven planning. Within the public finance management framework, implement a robust medium-term expenditure framework using reliable forecasts and risk analysis to guide expenditure decisions based on sound data and future considerations. So, right, so that has a short-term deliverable and a medium-term deliverable
In its own.
right? So like that, every action point. Now, for instance, here we talk about on revenue.
Yeah.
Unified Revenue Authority. Establish a revenue authority incorporated in the Inland Revenue Department and subsequently Customs and Excise Departments. Right? In the medium term, such an entity will enhance professionalism and efficiency of revenue collection, and in due course, it would become a separate government service with salary levels on par with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
Right.
That's a medium term deliverable.
Right.
Yes.
So like that,
There are various deliveries on various aspects as well.
yeah.
Super.
Also, Dr. Harsha, do you have a response to President Wickramasinghe's claim that the election manifesto and the economic blueprint do not go hand in hand and are two separate things?
No. Yeah. RW is, he is known for these things, He actually called me and asked, Harsha, where is the blueprint? I said, wait, sir, it's coming. Just waiting to hit it. But he can't find any holes in it. Other than to say, look, it is different to the manifesto. Well, like I said, the blueprint is an economics document. This 62 pages.
It's a clear-cut thing, isn't it?
Which myself, Kabir and Iran take responsibility for every word in this, right? The blueprint was prepared by the economics unit, it says, and it says this document does not include in-depth views on reforms in critical areas such as education, health, justice, and other aspects. So we have concentrated this only on the economics.
Right.
Right?
More or less on a business line.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to understand the economics game of the SJB, please download this, right?
And would you like to elaborate how you can download this one?
Yes, I mean there's a QR code that you download. We will try to sort of
put it out in public.
Put it out in public as much as we can.
Right.
Brilliant. Okay, we're going to take a short break right about now and get into a couple of our messages. Of course, time for right now precisely at 10 a.m.
us all morning right here on the Gold Morning Drive. In fact, we're going beyond our time because it is worthwhile talking to a gentleman with the sight that he has. Coming back, Doctor, to your blueprint, what would your government, of course, engage will be with the IMF, bearing in mind, of course, what the president says, oh, if it's not for him or if not for their party, everything will collapse. He's bringing in the boogeyman here, isn't he?
Well, I think the whole country knows it was us, in fact it was me, who pushed the then government to go to the IMF. My first speech in Parliament when we entered into 2020 August, we urged them multiple times, like 17 times we've told, look, please go and get, fix this before this country goes down the pallang,
so to speak.
so to speak. And they didn't go, but ultimately they had to go. Now everybody is claiming that's the only path without a change of, without any change, right? Now RW came to Parliament after 8 months or so, and then he also said the same thing. We said, look, go to the IMF. We've had a good conversation going with the IMF throughout the program. In fact, at one point, Peter Brewer, who runs the program for us, when Sajid, myself, Kabir and Iran met him, said thank you, because in many countries, the opposition only tries to block the IMF.
Yeah.
But in this case, you were supportive of us. Thank you. And it helped us get this program through the board, because we told them
The opposition also in favor of it.
in favor of it. In fact, what we did is we didn't oppose the program. We didn't vote for it because we were not in agreement with everything that is in there.
Exactly.
But we knew that it was the only way out for the country at the time. Right? So when RW tries to take all credit, I don't want to, really, because there was another side to that story.
Exactly.
Right? And in the Committee on Public Finance, where all laws get approved and implemented, we didn't oppose his central bank bill. We didn't oppose the debt restructure. We didn't oppose the public finance management. We didn't oppose the debt management legislation. You see, because we realize that the relationship with the IMF is important.
Yeah.
Now, there are two things here. Actually, there are three things. One is RW says cannot change anything, and you'll have to stick to what it is.
Yeah, what was agreed on
taxes,
both.
everything.
So is that right or wrong?
That is not right.
Okay.
Then the JVP says they are going to change what is called the debt sustainability analysis. Now let me explain to you.
Sure.
We build a house on a foundation, right? If you want to change the size of the rooms inside the house, you can break the 4-inch wall and move the wall here and there.
Sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But if you want to change the foundation, you got to remove the entire house brick by brick and restart.
It's a new project.
It's a new project. So some people think, the JVP in this case, that they can change the foundation. And we say, you cannot change the foundation. Let's change what we can change inside, but not the foundation. Because the entire debt restructure program that I was talking to you earlier, the $2.5 billion of ISBs, $11 billion of bilateral loans, etc., are resting on
Those
these
foundations.
foundations. So you cannot change the foundation. So I find it absolutely irresponsible when they actually write it and publish it saying they are going to have a alternate DSA. You cannot do that. You see, and people say Harsha is sort of a pawn of the IMF. He says nothing can be done. No, when I joined the workforce 31 years ago, when I came back with my PhD as a chief economist and treasurer of a big bank.
Sure.
From that day, I have been dealing with World Bank, other funders,
Various international
institutions, right? I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm being not being irresponsible here, right? So there are certain changes we will do. For instance, what I talked about, the taxes
Yeah.
on the middle class and all that. And also in sort of fundamentally what I call removing the anti-export or the anti-tradable bias in our economy. For instance, if you want to create an export economy, then you have to give incentives for export related investment.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we do that? So those kinds of reforms we will do. But when RW says you can't change anything, I disagree with him. When the JVP says they can change the foundation, I disagree with them. The only way we can do it is stay within the parameters and move forward.
Right.
Also, Dr. De Silva, why is the document named 3.0? In simple terms, what's the ideology and the design behind this?
No, because 1.0 we presented in August, I think, of 2022. When we fell in real trouble, and we said, look, this is what we think need to be done as an opposition. This is our contribution. We tabled it in Parliament.
Yeah.
Then in 23 February,
Right.
we talked about stabilization. We said these are the things that we think you need to do. This is our contribution to government, right? Being in opposition, here's a document. It's what 2.0.
So this
3.0 is going beyond stabilization. It is true that we don't have petrol queues and all that now.
Yeah.
We don't need to lie,
Yeah.
right? But like I said, no petrol queues then, 3 million people in poverty. No petrol queues now, 7 million people in poverty. So it's a different equilibrium altogether. But 3.0 talks about growth. It talks about creating jobs.
Moving forward from here.
Moving forward from stabilization
Yeah.
to getting to that dream that we always had.
Sure. Also, now it's implied within this blueprint that the public sector will be shrunk. Now, is it true?
Well, I mean, it doesn't say that here. What it says is that...
Implied, I said, not said.
That's
It's
right.
implied.
Yeah, because, I mean, we have to relook at when digitalization comes, right? I mean, some jobs will be redundant.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, over a period of time, we need to create jobs in the private sector. We need to create new jobs that young people would be attracted to, as opposed to just joining the public sector.
Yeah.
And making promises and giving them just as a promise when they come into power, kind of a thing, right?
What is the point? Right? So what we are saying is, natural attrition will happen.
Yeah.
Right, but then hiring into the public sector will have to be very seriously considered. Now, for instance, science teachers we need, English teachers we need, mathematics teachers we need, right? But we don't need so many, development officers or KKs or all.
We
these
have
guys.
abundance of them.
Right. So we have to create
Where the need is.
That's right.
Absolutely. All right. Dr. De Silva, thank you. We'll get back to him right after this.
The Morning Drive.
Fred, do you like the dictionary I brought for you for your birthday?
Oh, sure. It's a great present, but I just can't find the words to thank you enough.
The Blue Velvets.
That's right.
That was their name, Doctor, before they changed it to CCR.
That's right. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Of course, that's a personal favorite of the good Doctor Harsha de Silva, who's in here. Definitely a pleasure having you with us, Doctor. But before you head out, just a couple of quick last questions as well. It is said that the president's economic policies are slanted towards capitalism. Now, how does your humanitarian capitalism concept differ from that?
Well, I mean, we need to create wealth in this country,
Of course.
right? The only way to create wealth is capitalism,
Yeah.
right? So what Sajid is talking about is capitalism with a human face. That is why we are called, our model is a social market economy model. So two things, which is actually a good question, and to explain what our ideology is. On the one hand, we believe in markets.
Yeah.
That means we have to have economic freedom. People must be able to do what they like to do. You know, they should be given the platform to play. We need to unshackle the economy, provide for young entrepreneurs to create their digital enterprises successful.
Sure.
You know, somebody wants to be a modern farmer, give that person the platform to play. You know, somebody wants to create a song and make it go
Viral.
global, viral, digitally. You know, create the laws that they can do it. Somebody wants to sell something here made in Sri Lanka, in America. You know, create the digital infrastructure so that can happen, right? So that's and we believe in the markets. Governments cannot run businesses,
Yeah.
right? Businesses must be
Well,
run by
businessmen.
people who understand, right? But
saying that, Doctor, shouldn't the government entities also make money on the same, like not being a loss profit organizations, like the transportation we have in Sri Lanka?
no, so this is the thing, you know, but those need to be regulated if competition doesn't create sort of a level playing field. Now, for instance, there are what you call monopolies or oligopolies. Now, for instance, I've been talking a lot about the rice oligopoly.
Yeah.
Like 4 people control, 40% of the market. And if it continues in another 7-8 years, these 4 people will control 70% of the market, which means the basic food that we have, bhat, right? So that we have to create competition. So government will intervene in places like that. For instance, in our blueprint, it's very clear we are going to start something called the Shakti Rice Cooperative, which will bring together about 300 small and medium rice millers. We started it out, but it was stopped by Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government. But, that like in New Zealand, like in India,
And it also gives the consumer security as well, right?
For sure, and it will bring down the cost of rice, right? So when you say markets create competition in markets, right? And on the other hand, one is economic freedom, the other is economic justice. What's the point in 3 people getting rich?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
This wealth will be created through markets, and the distribution of that wealth in a very sort of fair way is other side of the coin, which RW does not have. JVP is only this side, distribution. But how are you going to create wealth if you don't believe in markets?
Yeah.
Right? Their Politburo can't run businesses.
Yeah.
Right? So we are different. We are different to RW because he says, I don't give a basically, about poverty. Poverty doubled, more than doubled. But what are you doing to deal with that? Versus the JVP who says, we know how to run businesses. In fact, they said, we will tell you how many hotels to build, how many 5-star hotel rooms you should have, how many cooks you need to employ.
And this is based on what theory?
I don't know, but ours is not that. right? And last point is you asked about state-owned enterprises making losses. I mean, they shouldn't be a burden on the people.
Exactly.
Right? So what we have created, and Sajid has also spoken about it a lot, is to create something similar to Temasek model in Singapore. So what it does is it removes these corporations from ministers,
Right.
and it puts them into a holding company. Right? So no minister can,
Interfere.
like thousands of people, from the electorate is given employment in corporation A, corporation
That's
B.
what I meant with earlier on, the promises of election employment.
That's right. But so some will come within the holding company, Temasek type holding company, and the others will stay out. That will be a political decision. What will stay out, what will come in. And once we agree on these are the companies that will come in, then we will decide what shareholding we will have. We will have 100% shareholding, or we will have 10% shareholding or 50% shareholding. So even if
But you're not talking about privatization here when it comes to transportation sectors.
No, we are talking about
Running the government in a private style.
No, not only that. Like let's say I think I'm right in this example that I'm just going to take. For instance, Singapore's Temasek owns 100% of the Singapore Port.
Yeah.
But it owns like 60% of Singapore Airlines. It owns 40% of, let's say, Singtel. Those are investment decisions made by people who understand and know how to run these, and they are run by actual professionals. Harvard MBAs, etc. Right? So what I'm saying is you got to create this national sort of wealth fund which Singapore has created. So that is why in Singapore taxes are kind of low,
Yes.
because the government gets revenue as dividends from the shares they own in these companies. So what we foresee is this wealth fund that will own shares of some state-owned enterprises here and shares of other companies overseas. I mean, I want Sri Lanka's wealth fund to have shares of Tesla. I want our people to own shares of Apple.
Yeah.
I want our people to own shares of Virgin Atlantic. I mean, that's the model that we are trying to create.
That's the market you're looking at.
Right,
as well.
so this is thinking outside the box, because never did we think, why should people in Sri Lanka not get dividends from a successful company in the United States? Why can't we think like that?
Sure.
True. If you don't aim, you will not achieve either. Finally, Dr. De Silva, the complex economic arguments are generally now beyond the grasp of the common man. What they would want is to live their lives very freely while continuing their employment. So can you illustrate as to how you intend to ensure that aspiration of the people?
I mean, I'm just a regular guy, right? You guys know.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all told me. I'm just a regular guy, as regular can be.
A regular guy who knows economics.
Right. So I want to live my life the way I live my life,
Sure.
right? And less interference, people telling me what to do. But do my thing, be able to meet my own aspirations. Every child, every mother has a dream, right? And how much of that dream can we sort of achieve, right? And people tell me, Harsha, the day I was born, we were a developing country. We are close to 60 years of age, we are a developing country. We will die in a few years, will we die in a developing country? Now, I'll just give you the reality here, right? Yathartha, right? So, to become a developed country, you need to achieve a certain per capita GDP,
Yeah.
right? Now, we are around $3,900 per capita. In fact, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa took us back 9 years. He took us back 9 years.
Only. It felt like about 50.
Yeah, but in terms of actual numbers, right, we lost a decade.
Yeah, that's
true.
So we had to catch up the 9 years and then go forward. So up to 2029, the IMF's predictions is that our growth will be 3.1%. So from 29, get this point, if we grow this economy by 10% every year, year on year on year, by 2047 we'll be a developed country.
Wow.
But we had never, no country has ever grown at 10% for 18
that
years.
rapid and sustaining that for so long.
You can't.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka has grown over 8% in all of 5 years when JR sort of liberalized, and soon after the war during Mahinda Rajapaksa's time, right? And we are now around 3%, 4%. So we got to get the growth rate up. We have to have we have to do something to get, we have to have a structural break in our growth path. It must go up. And in order for that to grow up, we have to create new markets. Because, growing and producing for this economy is not going to help us get there. Our dreams will never be able to be achieved if we go down this path of what these socialists are saying. It won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So therefore, simple things, have a decent job, make enough money to, go on a trip even once in a way.
Yeah.
Go out with your wife and kids for a meal sometime. Enjoy a drink at the, and some music somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that, your parents' medicine is bought and they have a reasonably, comfortable life.
Yeah.
And then, you have to make sure that you put money away for your kids' education.
For a cushion.
For a cushion, insurance, be able to build your own house. I mean, these are human requirements. I mean,
Sure.
what is the point in
Living?
What's the point in living if you
Yeah.
can't meet this?
They shouldn't be considered luxuries. They are just
They're
the
not.
bare minimums.
They're not.
Yeah. And one more thing, Doctor, what I want to ask you is now looking into the mindset of the people. Now you have all these aspirations, you got your blueprint, you got everything sorted out. Let's say moving forward, the mindset of the people, they are still a bit the lethargic, asai baya kind of a concept, isn't it?
No, we have to be brave, man. You got to take decisions in life. You got to take a call at some point. If you eat a huge plate of rice and go to bed, and have a 3 hours snooze and say, oh, what's going on,
There's something wrong there.
you can't, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to really create wealth in this country, if you want to really get ahead, we got to work hard. We got to work hard. We got to run fast. We got to compete with our neighbors in India and Vietnam and Thailand and Singapore and Bangladesh. We can't just stay at home and say, look, government must give us this, the government must give us that, the government must give us something
All
else.
freebies, enough
We
freebies
can't.
we give, right?
If you go down this path, we will be saying the same thing
10 years later.
20 years later.
Absolutely, Doctor. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Pleasure
with
was
us.
mine. Pleasure was mine.
And thank you so much for such an insightful chat as well to not just Jimmy and myself, but everybody listening out there. I'm sure they thoroughly enjoyed it. And best of luck.
Wish you all
on
the very
21st.
best. You and your party.
Thank you.
How many days more? 10 days more.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Thanks a lot.
All the very best.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
We take full responsibility